Thereby Chaitanya Bhakti and Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Koti Vaishnava ki Iskanaviti founder Acharya's Divine Grace Prabhupada ki jai, Acharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki jai, Samaveta Bhakti ki jai, Harinama Sankirtana ki jai, Ramtaraj Bhagavatam ki jai, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All glories, all glories. All glories. Bhakti Sangam, oh Bhakti Bhakti Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Om Sri Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Sarabhyaya Namaha.
Om Sri Surabhyaya Namaha.
Mukham karoti vasaram pangum nandayate grim yat kripat maham bande Sri Guru Granatharam. Yat kripat maham bande Sri Guru Granatharam. Hare Krishna. So we have, of course, gone through three of our seminars. We have met 3 days, 3 seminars. I would like to take a little bit the pulse, everyone's pulse, but I won't do it like this. Whenever we give presentations on the topic of Varnasrama, I had mentioned at the very beginning that it is not an easy subject matter to address, to deal with, even like to certain aspects possibly also not so easy to understand. And audiences also vary. So before continuing this morning, I would like to get a little bit of feedback, verbal feedback from you. We'll just spend maybe a few minutes on this in terms of so far the subject matters that we have presented or discussed. What are your some thoughts or feelings? whether it was sufficiently clear or making things more ambiguous. It was more confusing, less confusing. Is it helpful? And specifically, I didn't get, that's one of the reasons I'm asking this also this morning, I didn't get very much feedback in terms of which areas you would like to see discussed or addressed in the whole context, because it's so broad actually. But I think we all recognize it because you would not be sitting here. We all understand, recognize the importance of this whole dimension of Srila Prabhupada's movement. So you can just, if you have something to share, some comment like this, I really would appreciate it. I think it would be good for everyone. And I'll take out my pen in case something really important. I'm sure it's all important. We'll start here. By the way, excuse me 1 second. This is the second one I'm getting. 4 missing. Right? We had 6 groups. Now you all have to be good students, right? So especially those who are leaders who were the spokesperson, persons. So this is the second one. I got one yesterday. This is the second one. So I won't put anyone on the spot here, but kindly try to just get back to me those who were the spokesperson, the feedback. Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I was wondering yesterday, because ISKCON is still in the beginning stage of the development.
ISKCON?
As a movement,
Okay.
is still very much in the beginning of
Still,
development.
Yeah.
And like we have seen that we have Prabhupadas, where children were educated in spiritual knowledge. But then when they left Gurukul, there was not really any employment or any not in ISKCON and not outside of ISKCON.
Yes.
So I'm wondering this Gurukul system, how relevant is it really? Because today, for ISKCON today, because ISKCON has not developed so much that ISKCON can employ brahmanas and take care for brahmanas, and at the same time, if you give them community education, they have to maintain themselves and they want to have a family, they have to children. So how much relevance?
All right, got your point. We got it, I think. Yeah, thank you. Good point, actually. Maybe I guess we can. Your hand, I'm sorry?
It may also take me a minute to explain what it is.
Okay, we'll give you a minute.
Okay, it's good. You were mentioning about Paramarthik Shastra yesterday, and there's Lokik Shastra,
Yes.
both of which are necessary for society. We have Shastras, you mentioned, the one which teaches about the art of planting vegetables and growing things. But I see a kind of dilemma in that. I just wonder if you might comment on this. That, for example, I live in Orissa, and you may have some shastras that talk about how to grow vegetables in Orissa, how to make houses in Orissa. But the houses you make here in Sweden and the vegetables you grow here in Sweden are going to be very different. For example, I take shelter of Ayurvedic medicine, but about 90% of the Ayurvedic literature has been lost, destroyed by the Muslims years ago.
Yes.
And many Ayurvedic doctors will tell me that if you go to Sweden, if you go to America, you should take the herbs, the local herbs there, which are not, they have no idea about.
Right.
So it seems like this kind of culture is also a relative thing. And it's,
Okay. Good point. We can possibly comment or discuss on that. Yes.
You mentioned yesterday how we in ISKCON we have educated Brahmins.
I was mentioning that we have educated Brahmins. Did I say that?
Well,
I thought I said the opposite.
That was a different seminar.
we have been educating Brahmins.
We have?
We have been educating.
We have been educated as Brahmins. I don't recall saying that.
Oh, but in relation to that in Varnasrama that we have not educated Shudras, Vaishyas, and Kshatriyas.
Okay.
and that was lacking. At
Right.
least that's what I heard. What I
Okay,
heard
okay.
say that yesterday.
Yeah.
In that context that we have.
In that context, yes, we have given emphasis on brahmanas, on educating brahmanas. But I did not make the statement that we. Yeah. So you'd like some comment regarding educating others?
Yes.
Okay.
The full spectrum.
Yes.
Considering that like maybe 95 of ISKCON members live outside with normal jobs and their kids attend
Common
normal-
schools.
Yeah, common schools. I think that kind of like relevant steps for ISKCON as it is today, because we all know what the ideal is. But to connect these two parts, I think that's very frustrating, because I don't see like next step to it. I mean, what to do for these 95% of members of ISKCON
Yes,
with their
yes.
kids and their own occupation,
Yes.
how to help them.
Right. How to go to the ideal. How to.
What is next step now?
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other maybe comment? It can just be. It doesn't have to be a question, but it can be whatever. Some. Yes.
Yeah, I'm wondering about this, that if we bring up these points, some of these points we are discussing here in our local temples, where we are naturally, I come from a small temple where we just try to get a little book distribution done and some local preaching, like that, and not to be seen like an utopian or
Okay.
yeah, so how to implement this.
Any other? Yes.
There's some difference for men and women follow this Vaishnava culture,
Yeah,
how much, because when I started practicing, I never thought that, I thought I should be like one of the Swamis, but they are in male body. And then after some years, I understood that it may be some difference for ladies, and still here in the West, we are different ladies, we are not those ladies which were
Okay.
in modern context, how we as Western Vaishnavis should consider maybe our different
Yeah.
roles.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, one more comment, because you mentioned yesterday that it's an idea that children rather go to Gurukul and be together with the Guru, with the teacher.
Yes.
But it is also, it's a fact actually that it is very destructive for children's development to be separated from the parents in the early age, so 5, 6 years. It's just too early to separate the children from the parents. It will be very destructive for their personal development. Actually.
Dangers of separating children too early
Yes.
from parents. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Last one.
Yeah. Just a comment on this comment that we could see Bhakti Purnima Maharaj Gurukul, how they changed that implementation, how the children were after, say, 5, 6, 7 years back, they were allowed to sleep with the parents nighttime. How he changed that rule in his Gurukul ashram.
I see.
Yes, yes. So they adjusted a little bit in that direction.
Okay.
I don't know how it is today.
Okay. So how to, well, let's try to discuss these different points. Actually, today I wanted to keep a little bit of time also. Let's see how this goes, these points that have been raised. How many of you have, sometimes it's good for us to know that many of these thoughts and ideas that we have in terms of, for example, self-sufficiency and simplicity, living, sustainability, is also thought about and even being implemented at times actually even more so by non-devotees. I think we're all aware of that, most of us. And there's a nice, I find, instructive video. If most of you have not seen it, I wanted to share it sometime, possibly today or tomorrow. That they have at different times on these, I think many are possibly familiar with the TED Talk series. You don't know? TED Talk, yeah, right. So,
Yes.
yeah. We have a main feature documentary that I want to present, not today, called in connection with this campaign that we have, and there's a section there from one, well, I guess he's fairly well known now, Dr. Alan Savory. Anyone heard of him? Not that well known. Anyways, in other places people have heard about him, and you will remember his name after seeing the documentary. We quote him also because it's very closely connected with one of the main themes in regards to the campaign that we'll talk about it, and that we'll talk about in the next few days. I don't want to say much more than that because then I would have to continue talking about it. But there's another documentary, short, they're all short actually, the talks, from one person who lives in Thailand. You seen that? Yeah, it's life is simple, or life is easy. And it's really instructive because here's a, like Joe Blow, but just a very kind of candid, innocent kind of person who has some, I would say, very good and deep realizations that when we see this, coming from a non-devotee person, at least he's not showing signs directly, at least externally, but he has some devotional realizations in terms of simplicity of life. So it's about, I think, 15 minutes, and we can show that later on. Let's take some time to, now, we can do this in two ways. One is that I make a few comments from my side, but then it might be also good because, as I mentioned earlier, we could break on some of these points in groups to have different devotees' feedback because we all have different experiences. So, which way would you like that we do it? Do you want to, like some of these are actually, quite important topics that have come up at different times, and I'm sure different devotees have thoughts that they might like to share on that. So in other words, I'm asking, do you want to? Yes.
I have a comment. personally, I would like to hear from you, whichever you think is better for me to get a deeper understanding. If you think it's better to make in the groups, that's great. If you think your comments will get us a deeper understanding, I would do that. Whichever is interesting.
I second that.
We could do both. I mean, in the sense that we could break in group and get everyone's feedback, and then I can comment on that. And in this way we get, I think we pull, no. There's a definite no coming from the Mataji's side. What about the Prabhu side?
We have to follow.
I have to follow.
GBC och watch.
Following the footsteps of the Mahajans. Okay, we'll start.
Sounds like you feel like the best, I suspect, Varnish, just to be candid, sounds like you feel like the best would be for us to break into little groups and then you make comments afterwards. If that's what you feel like, I would like to do that personally.
We'll do it like this. Like this means we will break in small groups for a short time, like 15 minutes. And we'll assign, because there's quite a few topics here, maybe we can do like we did, you know, if you have too big of a group, it's difficult. Yesterday, the other day we had like, I think it was nice, 6 or 7 to each group. And then we can assign a topic to each group, and then within 15 minutes we'll try to bring this together and then share it, and I'll make some comment on it. Is that okay? No, I really want to hear from you also. You know, Sravanam, Kirtanam, I think that's our process. Hearing and then sharing. So let's do that. Meantime, I'll just choose the 6 topics and then I'll give it to each group, or as we break right now in groups, as you sit in your group, you may like to choose one of the topics that we've heard. You know, there's about, I think, 6 or 7 topics. Yes?
Maybe the one, I mean, that the groups are formed around the devotees who made the questions.
Ah, good question. Very good.
Yes.
So what I'll do is this: I'll read the topic, and then those who are, well, maybe I should read all the topics. Anyways, I'll read one topic. Whoever would like to discuss on this one, you make a group on this side, Prabhu side, and then Mataji side, and then I'll go to this one. We'll try to do this as quick as possible. The first one was a good question regarding, you know, we've had in the past, Gurukul, we've trained some of our children, they became young men, young ladies, and then what to do? There was no place for them, no means of livelihood, etc. So is it really practical? I think that's topic in terms of Gurukul, yeah, that aspect. So who would like to discuss this point? We can come together maybe on this side. Since it's your question, definitely you have to be in the group. Okay. And Prabhu's, okay, there's other topics. Yeah, well, it's good, yeah, it's sufficient that one group is doing that. And then another one was, yeah, education. We heard about, I think that was yours, right? Brahmanas. But not so much so far regarding other